What's something you've always wanted to do but have procrastinated taking the first step with? We come up with every excuse in the book to not do it, and eventually time passes and we are disappointed we still haven't attempted it. What I've learned is to commit before you are ready and then take the time to prepare yourself, right? I locked in my second marathon before I had even crossed the starting line of the first one. Was I nervous? Did it scare me a bit? Of course. But I knew once it was on my calendar, I had no other option but to prepare for it. Today, we're going to dive into what the Go One More Marathon experience was like. And by the end, I want all of you to commit to something you have pushed off for far too long. Are you ready to face that fear? Let's fire it up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bob Bay. Each week on these solo podcasts, we dive into topics to help you become the best version of yourself. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not, right? This is just my bearded wisdom that I hope brings value to you. If you enjoy this specific episode at any moment in time, all that I ask, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you are listening in on, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, you name the platform. Post it to your IG story. Tag me at Bob-A. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y. Share out the podcast on your IG story. Let me know what was the biggest takeaway. How did this specific episode change your perspective? I see you guys and gals sharing out these podcasts on a weekly basis on your social media. And believe me, it is so appreciated because this is what helps build the podcast organically. So please keep doing that. It is very, very much appreciated. If you missed the memo, and if you live under a rock and you did not know, January, we launched the Stay Dialed In app. This is your accountability community to help you become the best version of yourself. That's what all of my content is all about. And, recognizing there wasn't a place for people to communicate with one another, I created this app for that sole purpose. Not only are you getting additional access to content that is nowhere else, but you also have a community of people there to support you every step of the way. There's a lot of different categories that you can jump into different chats about mental health, physical health, career, relationships, life experiences. It is a welcomed community. So if this is of interest at all to you, please head over to join.staydieledin.com to learn more. Once again, that's join.staydieledin.com to learn more. I will have the link in the description of this episode for you to learn more about it. Stay dialed in, people. Go One More Marathon, G1M. If I abbreviated during the episode, that's why. So I'm saving myself and all of you Go One More Marathon. It's just G1M for today's purposes. Okay. It was always a dream of mine to run a marathon. But had you asked me if I was ever going to consider running two, I would have said you were out of your mind. Matter of fact, I had signed up for my second marathon on September 17th before I had even completed my first one here in LA, which was back on November 7th. Was I nervous to have two marathons on my cal without having completed the first one? Absolutely. But I loved the thrill of it, and I knew that I would find a way to get it done. There's something to be said about putting an end date on the calendar, knowing exactly when something will come in the future, and then having to reverse engineer the steps to make sure you're ready to go when that day arrives. So I completed the LA Marathon on November 7th, which then gave me about 12 weeks to train and get physically and mentally prepared for the G1M Marathon on January 29th. 3 full months to dial back in and get ready. Perfect. This marathon was not just another marathon. This was going to be something really special for a few different reasons. Back in the middle of 2020, when I was just starting to get into running, I stumbled across this guy, Nick Bear, on YouTube, who ultimately became my trainer from afar for long distance running. I studied this guy's content. He put out such good content showing the behind the scenes of dieting, stretching, running gear, recovery tips, training sessions, etc., of what it took to become a marathon runner. So I was taking notes as I was watching his YouTube videos on a weekly basis. Not only that, but he also shared just great advice on mindset, building a creator-led business, and how to do it all authentically. So to me, Nick Bear felt like my true north. I don't want to follow his exact footsteps, but I wanted to embody his work ethic, mindset, and so many of the skills that he had developed in himself. Through building an audience via YouTube, he went on to create a massive supplement company called Bear Performance Nutrition, also known as BPN. This was the company that was hosting my second marathon outside of Austin, Texas. Go One More was one of their main mottos, and it's all about pushing yourself to go one more rep, one more mile, one more whatever at any time you feel like you're about to give up. And I've talked about this motto and mindset multiple times on this, a lot on these solo podcasts in the last couple months. With only 250 spots for this marathon and selling out within 90 seconds, I was very, very lucky to be one of the few. Not only was I going to be running it, but I also convinced my roommate, Robbie Page, to jump in on it as well. I knew that this was a marathon that it could have easily brought in over 10,000 runners just based on what Nick's following of having over 750 subscribers. But I knew this was going to be a special experience with only 250 spots allowed. And I tried to use that as leverage of like, yo, Robbie, you got to come with me on this. This is going to be epic. And so sure enough, he signed up for it. So I celebrated completing the LA Marathon. And then within 2 weeks, I was beginning a 10-week training block leading into this second marathon. I was really proud of myself for my first marathon. So as I was able to complete it without having to stop during the actual race. And if you want to learn more about that actual marathon, go back into late November of the podcast feed, and I have an episode called the LA Marathon. I forget the number, but go back and you can hear more about what that experience was like. But with that being said, I hadn't stopped once during the race, which was something I was really proud of. And I had really no plan to really change the preparation for the second marathon other than I wanted to follow a much more structured training program as I kind of was winging all of LA's training. Also, I was now going to start paying attention to my heart rate variability, HRV, in the training because this was something that I had not looked at during training for LA. And Nick Bear had preached the importance of slowing down in training in order to speed up. And this was something that I wanted to try in preparation for this second marathon. I felt confident with my training strategy and was ready to get to work. I completed the LA Marathon in 3 hours and 48 minutes, which averages out to 8 minutes and 42 seconds, minute per mile pace, which is phenomenal for a first marathon. And at first I considered trying to run a sub 3 hour, 30-minute marathon, but being realistic with myself and the amount of training I was willing to put in, keyword willing, you got to be honest with yourself sometimes, while balancing all these other areas of my life, I committed to at least just beating my first marathon time. If I did that, I would look at the second marathon as a success. So the 10-week training program is a success. I follow the 4 days of running per week, with each day with a different number of miles to be run. Most weekday runs consisted of 5 to 7 miles, and then one day of the weekend was a longer run. As the weeks went by, these Sundays became my big run day, and it scaled 2 miles every week leading up to a few weeks out from the marathon. So it would go 12 miles one Sunday, then 14, 16, 18, and then finally 20. 20 was the highest number of miles I ran during the training, and then I tapered out 3 weeks ahead to allow my legs to fully recover and be refreshed come race day. For those new to running or not very aware of it, you don't ever really want to run the full 26.2 miles, which is the length of a marathon, until race day. And you also want to give your legs a few weeks to recharge after you've put them through months of constant running. I'm starting to realize now too, with my legs being so adjusted to these long distance running, that I don't necessarily have to taper out 3 weeks. I could probably do 2 weeks for Boston Marathon, and which is going to be coming up, or I could do 1 week. I wouldn't say 1 week, but as your legs get used to running, that's usually what happens. So I'm for sure no expert, just sharing what I've learned along the way thus far. Just remind yourself of that. So Wednesday, January 26th comes, and it's time for us to fly to Austin. I had never visited the city before, so I was excited to get a taste of it after hearing so many people talk so highly of it. Lucky for Robbie and I, our friend Yuli, a creator of BPN, and his girlfriend Brittany were so kind to allow us to crash at their spot while we were in town. So they live 30 minutes north of Austin in Georgetown, Texas. So it's only 15 minutes from the BPN HQ in Round Rock, Texas, which is where we were going to be to check in for the marathon and depart to go to the marathon the following day. So during the check-in, the day before the marathon, I finally got a chance to meet Nick Bare, the man that I had studied online so much in the past 2 years, and it felt surreal to now be shaking his hand and meeting him for the first time. Just getting a walkthrough of the office a few nights before gave me the chills because, I knew the inside of this headquarters from all the content that I had consumed, but to be in person, I could feel this energy of just pure gratitude for how this company was inspiring hundreds of thousands of people to better themselves. I gave Nick the credit he deserved for the 5 minutes that I chatted with him, and I just told him how much he had impacted me and how grateful I was for everything that he had put out there to the world. For someone that had 200 other people waiting to meet him, he was extremely present and patient, and I admired that about him very much so. There's only one other CEO founder that I've come across with very similar energy and perspective as a leader, and that's Brandon Cohen, the founder of Liquid IV. Both of these individuals are cut from a different cloth and are two people I greatly, greatly admire. Getting a chance to meet Nick only added more fuel to the fire for this marathon, which was now at this point about 15 hours out. The question I had submitted was from Ben McAvoy. He said, what was going through your head meeting and running in the marathon for the guy that motivated you to get into running? It's a great question, Ben. And it was very surreal just to know that one of the main inspirations of why I was running and how I got myself into a position to be able to run marathons was for this guy, Nick Bare, and then everything else that he had put out through his content. So to me, it was just like going into the marathon, it just felt so right. And I was so happy to be there. And I knew it was going to be an experience of a lifetime and something that I would talk about for a long time. So I think just the word to describe it all was just pure, that's not the word, but gratitude. Just grateful to be there because of how much I'd been impacted by Nick, and it just got me so fired up. So after check-in, we got back to Yuli's house where we were staying, and it was time to lock in. The training had been complete. There's nothing else that we could do at this point but wind down and wait. I'd spent the past 36 hours drinking lots of water and coconut water, which is something new. I've been drinking coconut water, helps with electrolytes. Ate a lot of carbs like rice and pasta, and ate some chicken and steak for proteins. A question I had from Miles was, what's the diet look like these days? And I think that the key is you don't really want to, and when I was dieting for going into the marathon, maybe leading up to it, you really don't want to switch things up. You want to stick to what has worked. You don't want to throw your stomach off. So a lot of my training was just rice and meats or rice and beans. And I just stuck to that. And that's kind of the way I approached it going into the marathon, at least 2 to 3 days out, is like eating a lot of food, a lot of healthy foods, but not, eating out or eating something that I've never really had for the first time, just sticking to what has worked and double downing on that. Quick break from today's episode, and then we'll get right back to it. Today's episode is brought to you by none other than the greatest matcha company brand in the world, Tenzo Tea. Now, if you're watching, I got this right here in my hand visually. If you can't, unfortunately, you can't see this beautiful canister with the Tenzo matcha logo, and it's where I pour my matcha into to then scoop out every single morning. 2021, this was one of the biggest shifts in my life. Sustained energy throughout the day, okay? As somebody that loves coffee and still do to this day, I went from 2020 being a 100% coffee drinker to literally, I kid you not, 2021, I became 80% matcha, 20% coffee. Let me say that one more time. 80% matcha, 20% coffee. A huge dramatic shift in my life. I'm not just saying this. I'm telling you the most authentic truth. What I love about matcha is that sustained energy aspect and not this high peak of a high and a low immediate crash. I mix my matcha with almond milk every single day. I make a little latte and it tastes fantastic, okay? 64% of American adults drink coffee every day and pay the price with dehydration, jitters, anxiety, headaches. Switching out the morning coffee for matcha helps us stay level-headed, focused, and avoid the coffee crash. Tenzo matcha contains natural caffeine and L-theanine that helps keep you energized and focused like a Zen monk. You can head to tenzot.co, use my promo code TheBeardedMan, all one word, for 25% off your order. I'm telling you right now, this stuff is an absolute game changer. I use it in the morning. I use it sometimes before I'm about to go out. If I need a little extra kick, a little extra kick to my day. It's just such a game changer. And I think you're going to start seeing people wanting to try it more moving forward. Each scoop has 36 milligrams of caffeine. So you're getting a lot of caffeine, and it's unbelievably delicious. I signed up for the monthly subscription, so I don't have to worry about ordering it. It shows up in my doorstep every single day. Mix it in with a little bit of almond milk, and I am ready to fire it up every single day. So please do yourself a favor. If you're looking to reach your potential, if you're looking to have sustained energy throughout the day, if you are looking to utilize the best 24 hours of your day, you need to add in Tenzo Tea Matcha into your daily routine. Once again, head over to tenzot.co. Use my promo code TheBeardedMan, all one word, for 25% off your order. You're going to thank me. But the only way to figure that out is by trying it. tenzot.co, TheBeardedMan, 25% off. Go check it out. Now, let's get back to today's episode. So we had to be at the BPN HQ for 6 a.m., and then they were going to bus us to where the marathon was taking place, as it was scheduled to kick off around 6 a.m. It was around 9 a.m. out near Salado, Texas. It was on a private ranch. It was pretty epic, which I'll get into. This meant my alarm clock for the next morning was going to be for 4 a.m. We passed out by 9 p.m., got a solid 7 hours of sleep, and I felt really rested when I woke up. From the moment that I woke up all the way until crossing that starting line, I was dialed in on what I needed to do for my pre-marathon prep. My routines worked for me in LA, and I sure wasn't going to change it up for this one. So 4 a.m., I wake up. 4:15 a.m., I drink a full glass of water with liquid IV to get some electrolytes. And I also drink a full glass of black coffee to get the bowels moving before the run. So not to get into that all too much, but to just express the importance of flushing your body out completely before a long run. And black coffee was a trick, and something that I learned from Nick, and works like a charm. 4:40 a.m., we eat the last meal before the race, which is toast, peanut butter, and banana. So good. Actually, it was almond butter, not peanut butter, but fantastic. 5 a.m., dropped into a 20-minute meditation to slow down the mind and just get real present. 5:25 a.m., warm up the body with a Theragun, which is a massage handheld machine. So important for anyone that out there that values fitness. It's really good for your body. It helps, just get the juices flowing. Then I rolled out on a foam roller and completed some more pre-run stretches. 5:40 a.m., dressed in the clothes I had laid out the night before. Once again, so dialed in, wearing the same outfits that I had worn on every long run because my body's comfortable. I like the feel of it, and this is not the time to try something different. So wore the same clothes, and I had them laid out the night before, so I didn't even have to think about it in the morning. And then 5:50 a.m., we're out the door. Well, just our luck, we're running late. All the buses had left except there was a late bus, which we were literally the last runners to get on. The last two individuals, 5 minutes later, maybe 3 minutes later, the doors were shut and the bus was leaving. But wasn't really the best way to start the morning before a big race, but we made it, and that's all that mattered. So we arrived at the ranch around 6:50 a.m., and the sun was slowly starting to rise. All right. I was happy to see it coming up because it was 35 degrees and truthfully just not the most ideal weather, but there wasn't any snow on the ground, so for sure wasn't going to complain. 60 minutes out from the starting line, I did some more stretches to keep the body warm. 30 minutes out, I used the bathroom one last time. 15 minutes out, we started to line up at the starting line for a speech by Nick Bear, a flyover from a local Air Force base, which was sick, and then a singing of the national anthem, and then we were ready to go. Here are the biggest differences of the LA Marathon versus the G1M Marathon for context. Unlike LA, we were not running through a city, and we had to do 2 laps on the same course in order to complete a full marathon. And when I say lap, I don't mean like you go one time around, then 2 times. It was literally down and back. That's one, down and back. That's your second and final lap. So it was 2-ish miles down on a rocky road. Then it was about 4-ish miles on pavement. And then you would flip back around, run back on that same road, about 4-ish miles on pavement, 2 miles on dirt road to complete the first half marathon. And then once again, back around for one more lap to complete the full marathon. This was definitely a mental game as you're just running on the same course all day long. Being on the open road of Texas, we dealt with winds, which was not even a question in the LA marathon, because in LA, basically where the route is, you're in a city. It's very hard for wind to really affect you, but we were literally on the open land of Texas. In LA, there was 13,000 runners, which brought a lot of energy. This one was 250, which was tight and a very intimate experience for, this marathon. Along the 26.2 miles of LA, there were thousands of people along the sidelines cheering you on every step of the way. For this marathon, nobody was out there except medics and hydration stations every 2 to 3 miles. LA was about 1,000 feet of elevation, at least that's what my watch had said. And then this marathon was about 600 feet of elevation. 2 completely different experiences, both with their own pros and cons. So 6 a.m. comes and the marathon begins. As I cross the starting line with Robbie next to me, I say out loud to tell him, but more importantly, to remind myself, 1 mile at a time. 1 mile at a time. I wasn't going to get anxious thinking about all the miles ahead of me. I was only going to focus on the race 1 mile at a time. This is where the BPN and Nick's mindset of go one more really came into play. We got into mile 1. Sweet. Boom. We did it. Now let's get to mile 2. Mile 2 complete. Great. Let's get to mile 3 and so on. I approached this marathon the same way I did with LA when it came to hydration and fueling up. I would hydrate every 2 miles with water and liquid IV that was in my water bottle, which had electrolytes. And then I would eat a gel pack every 5 miles, which had a little bit of calories, some caffeine, and some carbs. I stuck to the plan, and I did just that. So for the first 10 miles, I felt really good. Pacing was faster than I was shooting for, but I felt good, and I just kept going. Looking back, I shouldn't have started so hot, and instead just sat in the pocket a bit longer so I could get the body fully warmed up before pushing it, but you live and you learn. Mile 10 through mile 19, I started to slow down, probably with an additional 20 seconds per mile, but was still making great strides and felt good. When I flipped around at mile 13.1, where the starting line was, but also was my turn point to head back, for the second half of the race, everyone was screaming and cheering people on at the starting line. And as I'm turning the corner, I was just firing on all cylinders, so much adrenaline, with the whole mindset, that Nick Bear has pushed to his audience. He's literally there. And I just yell, 1 more fucking lap. And you might have seen I posted a photo on my social media of me where I looked like I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs. It's a black and white photo. And that was the moment. Miguel, the photographer, captured this priceless moment. I was just so jacked up on adrenaline. And I just wanted to make a statement to the BPN team that the bearded man was here. Once we got to mile 20, though, let me tell you, the bearded man was there, but he was hurting. That's when I started to hit a wall. I had been there before, and I knew the real marathon began at mile 20 because the last 6.2 miles were both physically and mentally the toughest. For the remaining 6.2 miles, it was a combination of both running and walking, which was one thing I did not want to do. I wanted to start and finish the race running, but it ultimately was a great lesson that I learned. My body was starting to cramp up. Wasn't getting enough hydration as I most likely needed throughout the run. The sun was up at around 60 degrees and was causing my body to heat up a bit more. The winds also played a role, which didn't exist when I was running the LA marathon. Those final 6.2 miles, I had to dig deep within and remind myself, once again, focus on 1 mile at a time. There was 0% chance I wasn't going to finish it. It was just a matter of how I was going to do it. Go one more became more than just one more mile. It became one more step, and then another, and then another. David Goggins popped in my brain, and all I could hear him saying is, stop making excuses, just keep running. I thought about Rich Roll, who had completed 5 Ironmans in 7 days, and I told myself, if he can do that, I can finish this marathon strong. So I slowed down the pace. I didn't care that I wasn't at the speed I was at when I started the marathon. I just wanted to keep my legs moving, even if it was a light jog. Mile 22 hits, headphones die. No biggie. I had been here before, and I knew this was bound to happen at some point. I quickly adjusted, started bumping music out of my iPhone just to keep the body moving. And it did. It definitely kept me moving. I just needed something, just something. Now, that was a question I had gotten from Sean Bierba. Bierba? I hope I pronounced that correct. If not, I apologize, Sean. He said, what song/vibe are on your running playlist? I'm bumping Lane 8, Rufus, Bob Moses, Elderbrook, and literally just club bangers. I'll link that up in the description below with the playlist my roommate makes that I use as my running playlist. And if you look for stuff to get the body moving, this is going to be it. So mile 23, and I run into another fellow runner who was also struggling. I share some encouraging words with him. I'm not screaming at this point, but just a very little whisper. Keep going, brother. And he does the same for me. At this point, you're really out there on the open road by yourself, as there's a few hundred feet in between each runner. Nobody's on the sidelines to cheer you on. It was all mental. This was an aspect of the marathon that excited me the most because it forced you to dig deep within to create the momentum to keep going. And I knew this was going to happen, that the pack was going to split up, that although, coming out the starting line, we're all together. As time went on throughout the race, it really started to split up with different pacing for all the different runners. And it would allow these opportunities to just really dive inward and find a way to create the fuel within yourself. Mile 24, the end is near, but nowhere in sight. I stopped one last time to chug water and electrolytes, and now we're in the home stretch. Mile 25 is a pain, as I feel like I'm just running up one big hill that I was climbing. Mile 26, and I can now hear the finish line music bumping before I even can see it. At this point, my calves are continuing to cramp, but I push through the pain. I put my head down and I focus on the small steps in front of me. Before you know it, I'm only a few hundred feet from the starting line, and I gave it everything I've got. Crossing the finish line, I finished at 4 hours and 5 minutes with an average pace of 9 minutes and 9 seconds. So this wasn't as great as LA and below my goal. I was greeted by Nick Bear, the GOAT himself, at the finish line, where he put a medal around my neck and gave me a massive hug to congratulate accomplishing the marathon. One of the BPM photographers that I mentioned earlier, Miguel, captured this epic moment. And it gets me emotional looking at the photo because it really was a full circle moment. The man who truly inspired me to become a marathon runner was now embracing me as I crossed the finish line to complete my second marathon. Regardless of the time, the mission was complete. I had now completed my second marathon, and I had done so in front of one of, if not my biggest inspiration with running. Now I'd like to dive into 7 lessons that I took away from this marathon. First lesson, commit, then come up with a plan. As I discussed earlier, I had signed up for this marathon before I had even completed my first marathon. And looking back, I was pretty cooked to do that, but I'm glad that I did it. It is very easy for us as humans to say, someday I'll do X. But if we never put a deadline, how will we ever have the urge to get it done? Weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and then we wonder why we never got around to doing the thing. The only way to ensure that we do the things we want to do is by fully committing to it 110%. By tossing it on the calendar, it forced me to commit to the second marathon, and then it gave me time to come up with a plan for how I was going to train myself in preparation for it. So lesson number 1, commit first, then reverse engineer a plan for how you're going to execute it. Number 2, slow down to speed up. Outside looking in, you would assume that in order to run faster, we must push faster all the time. That's not the case. It's a balance of staying slow and steady while also working on fast pacing separately. I've taken this lesson from running and now use it in all other areas of my life. I need to slow down sometimes, assess where I'm at, and then speed up again once I am certain I'm headed in the right direction. If we're going 100 miles per hour in the wrong direction, do we actually make any progress? So lesson number 2, it may seem like we are hurting our progress by slowing down, but in reality, it will help us speed up in time. Number 3, we need to support ourselves first. What I love most about the last 6.2 miles of the marathon was being out on the Texas Open Road with nobody except myself. Sometimes runners would pass by or I would catch up to them, but not long after that, they were just a small speck in the distance. This was a reminder for me that in those times when nobody's around you to support you, you have to go internal and support yourself. We need to become our biggest hype man or hype woman because there will be times when we feel like we are on the journey by ourselves. And so long as we can find the support within, we will keep going. So lesson number 3, regardless of the circumstances, we must become our biggest supporter. Number 4, go one more. If I told you to go run 26.2 miles right now and you're not an endurance runner, the thought can be extremely overwhelming. However, if I told you to run to the end of your street and then to the traffic light in the distance and then to the convenience store on the corner and so forth, seems much more doable, right? Think of making progress in the smallest amount of steps and then remind yourself to go one more. Just one more mile, just one more cold email, just one more rep at the gym, etc. These just one more moments are going to stack up to some massive progress in time. Mentally, I was tapped out for those last few miles of the marathon, but I kept telling myself, one more step, one more step, one more step. And before I knew I'd crossed the finish line. So lesson number 4, break everything down into micro steps and tell yourself to just go one more. In time, that progress will add up. Number 5, completing is more important than results. I'm going to be 110% honest. I was disappointed in the performance of this marathon. I set my expectations and I didn't even come close to reaching the result I was shooting for. A few hours later, after completing it and reflecting on it, I had the realization that I was looking at this from the completely wrong lens. And that's just me being my own biggest critic. Yes, it's good to set goals and strive to reach them. But at the end of the day, completion is more important than results, in my opinion. Did I reach the goal? No. But did I get the job done and complete a fucking marathon? Yes. Clap it up, pat yourself on the back, bearded man, because this is a massive, massive accomplishment. So lesson number 5, getting from point A to point B, it is no small feat, regardless of what area of your life it might be. Embrace the wins and learn from the experience and how you can improve for the future. Number 6, pain is temporary, pride is permanent. This was my senior year quote in my high school yearbook, and this is pulled from one of the greatest teachers I had in high school, Ann Hennessy. The pain endured in the marathon was not enjoyable, both mentally and physically, during that 4 hours and 5 minutes. But that short-term feel of pain is worth the lifetime of pride that I will have knowing I completed it. This doesn't have to be for marathon running either. You may be battling some type of pain in any area of your life right now, and it crushes you. I and we have all been there before. But trust and remind yourself that this short-term pain is going to fill you up with a lifetime supply of pride. Another example for me was being a full-time Uber driver for 3.5 years. During that time, I felt pain in the sense that I was being undervalued in the world by not doing the work that I felt like I could excel in. Now it's part of my story. And the pride of having driven 19,002 total rides is a testament to my discipline, work ethic, and commitment to my vision. So lesson number 6, short-term pain is temporary, but pride is permanent and can be carried with you for a lifetime. And number 7, if you want to go far, go together. It takes a team to do anything great, and there's no way this G1M marathon would have been possible without the team Nick has surrounded himself with at BPM. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's exactly what I saw firsthand with this company. Every individual is happy to be there and genuinely wants to help people through their content, their product, and their mission. Big thanks to Yuli Gabriel, Tyler McCain, Jordan Utter, Alex Rodriguez, Trey Freeman, Jeremy Miller, Adam Klink, and the many, many more team members that help BPN operate. I know for a fact that in order to help the most amount of people reach their inner potential at scale, which is my mission, I will need a team of people around me to help do that. And BPN is leading by example. So lesson number 7, in order to do something great, you will need a team of people around you. If you want to go far, go together. What is next? What's the next marathon? If you've been paying attention to me on social media, you know the answer. On April 18th, I will be completing and running the Boston Marathon. This is a lifetime dream of mine growing up in Massachusetts, and I'm honored to be part of this marathon. With the Boston Marathon, in comparison to a lot of other marathons, you need to, I'm blanking on the word. I'm literally blanking, but you have to run previous marathons at a certain pacing in order to get into the marathon. There's two ways. You have to either qualify, that's the word. You have to qualify for the Boston Marathon by running a certain marathon in a certain amount of time, or the other way is running on behalf of a charity. So I did not qualify, but I will be running on behalf of a charity known as Dana-Farber. It's a massive cancer institute in Boston. I think they're number 3 leading in the world. And I will be running on behalf of them and 500 other runners for Dana-Farber to help raise awareness to cancer research. I have a goal of raising $12,500, and I need to raise this by April 18th. So if you would like to contribute, I think cancer is something that we all know somebody directly or are mutual friends with somebody that has gone through it or is going through it. In the last year, 2 years, I know of 2 people that are going through breast cancer, and it's really gnarly how cancer has just impacted so many people's lives. And so I feel honored to run on behalf of their organization. So if you feel inclined and would like to contribute to this as I'm trying to raise, I will have the link in the description below. I think we have about $3,000 raised, which I'm extremely grateful for, and I appreciate anyone that hears this that has donated some of your hard-earned money. Thank you for doing so. We still got quite a bit of ways to go in the next 10 weeks. And so, yes, please, if you do feel inclined to contribute, I will have that link up in the description below. Extremely excited, extremely honored. Going to put on a clinic at the Boston Marathon on behalf of Dana-Farber come April 18th. And it's going to be legendary. So stay tuned as that'll be here before we know it. Challenge for listeners. I really want y'all to spend 10 minutes in the next 24 hours and consider something you've always wanted to do, but yet you found every excuse in the book to push it off till later. I'm not judging you because I have been there before. So trust me. Today begins the journey of you accomplishing whatever it is that you want to do. Think about it, commit to it by putting it on your calendar, and whatever you do, make sure you show up and you get it done by the deadline. So please think of something and commit to it today. Pod review of the week. This week's pod review is coming from Michaela9144. The review is in the title, Amazing Motivational Podcast. Love that. Michaela gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The review says, I recently started working from home. One of my goals is to use my phone less. And to help with this, I listen to podcasts most of the day. I love this podcast. Bobby gives motivation and reviews how to build good habits while keeping the podcast interesting. Highly recommend. Michaela, thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. Thank you for the review. And I'm just honored that you take the time to listen to the show. And I'm stoked to hear that this has been beneficial for you at all. I think it's really important that although we have these phones on us all hours of the day, to be mindful with how many times we pick it up. So if this podcast is helping you not pick it up and it's helping you grow and learn, I'm all for it. So thank you very much. If you would like to be next week's pod review, please head over to the iTunes podcast app. Jot down a 1-word, 1-sentence review. If you're listening on Spotify, you can rate the show and review it right there on the app, on the actual app, 1 to 5 stars. Hopefully a 5, but it's up to you. And I can't track it, so I will never know. If you enjoyed this specific episode, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. Screenshot it, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bobe. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y. Share the podcast on your IG story. Let me know what was the biggest takeaway, what was the learning, how did this specific episode change your perspective? I would be very curious to know. So please keep sharing that out. I see you guys and gals doing this on a weekly basis and know that it does not go unappreciated. So please keep doing so. If you have not yet downloaded the Stay Dialed In app, you need to do that today. It's available on all app platforms. This is your accountability community. We're here to support you every step of the way with you becoming the greatest version of yourself. It is free to download. There is a paywall behind certain content and behind the community of $4.99 per month. I try to keep it at a reasonable price, the cost of an average cup of coffee in any major city. And I hope you guys and gals find value from it. So if you'd like to learn more, head over to join.staydialedin.com to learn more. I'll also have that link up in the description below. Join.staydialedin.com to learn more. That is the Stay Dialed In app. That's it. Episode 165, Go One More Marathon. Pain is temporary. Pride is permanent. Thank you guys and gals for tuning in. We'll see you real soon. It's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya.